Welcome to this week's episode of Getting Through Algebra 2 with Charlotte Chrostowski. Today we will be reviewing solving a quadratic equation using the square root method. We will look further into solving quadratic equations that could result in imaginary numbers, meaning quadratic equations that have a square root of a negative number. We will learn how to deal with this negative as well as how to finish solving the quadratic. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to solve quadratics very strongly using the square root method, as well as feel more comfortable working with imaginary solutions.
So remember, the main thing is, if you want to use solve by square rooting, you need to get the x squared portion by itself. Okay, if the x squared or the parentheses with the x squared is not alone, make it alone. So I'm going to look at a couple of these. So if I look at number 1, my x squared portion is not by itself. I need to move the 25. So to do that, I would do minus 25 on both sides. So x squared equals negative 25. Now the x squared is by itself, I can square root. Don't forget that is going to be plus or minus root negative 25. We have already learned how to do negative roots. So this would end up being x equals plus or minus 5i. I is your negative, 5 is the square root of 25. And you would be done. If you prefer, you could write it x equals 5i or negative 5i. That's up to you. On number 4, first thing I need to do is move that 75. So I have negative 3x squared equals 75. X squared is still not by itself, so I need to divide by negative 3. X squared equals negative 25 again. Did not do that on purpose. Square root. I end up, again, with plus or minus 5i. On 7, my x squared portion is a little bit bigger. Okay, it's this whole thing. I need to get all of that by itself. So I can subtract 9. I have x plus 1 squared equals negative 9. Now my squared portion is by itself, so I can go ahead and square root. That will give me x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3i. When you do your minus 1, remember it goes up front. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus 3i. Again, if you prefer to write it separately, you can make it x equals negative 1 plus 3i and x equals negative 1 minus 3i. Either way, you can't combine them. So I usually leave it together, but that's up to you. On the back, let's look at number 10. So again, I need to get this x squared portion by itself. So I'm going to start by doing times 3. That gives me x minus 7 squared equals, let's see, negative 96. Now I need to square root. I have x minus 7 equals plus or minus square root of negative 96. I do need to simplify that. If I type it in, it's not nice. I know the negative is an I. I need to break down 96. Be 2 times 48, 2 and 24, 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3, 3 and 1. Pair them off, cross one off. Cross 1. So right now I have x minus 7 equals plus or minus 4i square root of 6. Last step is to move the 7. So I have x equals 7 plus or minus 4i root 6 as my final answer. So it's all about getting that x squared portion by itself. If you need to, you can always highlight. Okay, here's the portion I need by itself. First thing I got to do is move the 5. So I have 2 times x plus 8 squared equals negative 58. Divide by 2. X plus 8 squared equals negative 29. Now I can square root. X plus 8 equals plus or minus negative 29. Again, go off to the side. The I root 29. And 29 actually does not break down. Y up to 0. It should be 29. Yeah. So my final answer is going to be negative 8 plus or minus I square root of 29. I'll write it in the middle. And that would be your final answer. So even though we have negative square roots, we can still solve by square rooting.